All right, welcome to Friday 15, everyone. This is Brian back here with Andy Hoare, Master B2B. We have an exciting session we're going to talk about today in 15 minutes. At least we're going to try.
It's definitely at least.
Yeah, exactly. Well, folks, welcome to Friday 15 with Master B2B, the only trusted and largest and most comprehensive intergalactic community of B2B e-commerce professionals. We're excited to share today a recap of our summit, our Mindshare Summit. Andy, I'm excited for this topic today.
Yeah, we always forget we have these great gatherings, and then what we forget is that there's a ton that was learned and exchanged and taken away from it. So we're going to share a little bit of that today. So let's
get into it. So, right, no breaking news today because we got a lot to cover and share. I mean, gosh, Andy, what a fantastic event. And when we started this whole thing, Master B2B, we talked about, we started it really as a thought leadership series, a series of unwebinars where we had debates. And what it has truly evolved into is a community of B2B e-commerce executives. And I love this quote. I'll read it for those of you listening on our podcast. A community, this is from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He's a former member of the UK House of Lords. He said, a community is a place where people know your name and miss you when you aren't there. And this is what happened. I mean, my goodness, these folks are, it's funny. Before the event, Andy, people had FOMO, fear of missing out, right? And then when we got there, people were asking, "Oh, hey, great to see you." They saw each other, saw people they knew, but they also was like, "Hey, where's Joe or where's Sally?" Folks that they didn't see at the event. So this has truly happened, and it was really a representation. We had 100+ people, executives, subject matter experts from all kinds of different industry leaders. Sloan was there, Zoro was there, Dawn Foods was there, Owens Corning, Direct Supply, Fastenal. It was just an incredible list of executives that were sharing and learning, and some of the feedback's been amazing. We'll share that a little bit later, but it was really it's so different than a traditional conference. It's just a different type of event that we have here. So Andy, any takeaways on the attendees? Anything from a community perspective?
Well, when we threw that quote up, we thought maybe it was a bit aspirational, but as you pointed out, it turned out to be exactly correct. People were saying, "Where's so and so?" And I'm glad I came because I wanted to see so and so. And then there were people in the hallway interacting with one another, pointing each other aside, talking about things, saying, "Hey, remember the last time we were here?" So there's definitely a continuity about what people are getting out of this. And to your point, this is unlike anything else out there. When you'll see from the photos here in a moment, we put people in rooms. These are real discussions. These are not fake discussions like you and I have been sadly a part of in the past at other events,
right?
Where it's all kind of scripted and contrived. Not here. One, I remember one of the ones that I was a part of, I actually hosted it. I had a couple of ideas about where I was going to go with it. Yeah. And I posed one question, and 50 minutes later, we went in a different direction. People loved it. And it was, and this is the term I really started to use. Somebody pointed this out. We were crowdsourcing it.
Right.
I think that's exactly the way to think about it. Is people come to this event to crowdsource problems and, more importantly, solutions.
And we're leaning heavily into this as an organization and as a community because, I remember back in my days, Andy, when I was VP of e-commerce in the consumer side, the most valuable input I would get was typically from other VPs of e-commerce. It was from other folks, other practitioners who would try different things and succeeded in some and failed in others. And I would learn and I would bounce ideas off of them. And we've created that, sort of at scale. So we held this event at the University of Chicago's Booth School at their Gleacher Center. It's their graduate school of business in downtown Chicago. What a fabulous place to do this, because it was really, I think it changed the mindset of folks when they come into a space like this and they see Nobel laureates on the wall, and just really a classroom setting and really just a different type of setting than what we typically attend as a conference. I think people really enjoyed that, and we got consistent feedback that the venue is fabulous. So
we had the whole floor too. To have the whole floor to ourselves, people could pull aside. They could have private moments. It was, like you said, having the Nobel laureates behind you on the wall. Wild.
That's cool.
That you always see that for the people who can see it. You're seeing a section of it. It goes for hundreds of feet in both directions.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And so you'll walk from one end to the other, and you'll be passed on the left or the right by names of extremely famous people.
Yes.
For those of you who are Oppenheimer fans, funny enough, I'll just tease you with one of the Nobel laureates was the father, sadly, the father of the German atomic program, Hindenburg, whose name was actually hanging right behind us. And if you saw Oppenheimer, he was in the movie, and it's like, I didn't know he was at the University of Chicago for 1 year. So pretty wild.
It was fascinating, and the views were great, and the food I thought was excellent, and we got good feedback on that as well. So really great location. But I mean, the beyond the location, it was really about the connections. And we had this session that we started called Table Topic Connections, and this is one of the highlights. A lot of people wanted even more time at this. What we did was we had all the folks sit at round tables, and we alternated, and we talked about different aspects and different key questions. And Andy, at your table, so they were all facilitated conversations, and people would alternate tables. Your table, you talked about where's your next dollar being invested in digital. What was the answer there? You had some interesting conversations.
But we had a lot of answers, which was also kind of interesting. There weren't one or two that everybody consistently said. There were some that stood out. User experience was probably number one. Number two was data. And then number three, interestingly enough, and this is one of those sign of the time things where we forget, we always think that everybody is talking about AI and implementing, brand new technologies and upending their companies, when in fact, there's a bit of the snake still swallowing the food, right? And it takes a while for it to pass through the system. The number three answer was headless. We're spending our next dollar on headless. And I thought, wow, isn't that kind of like 2 or 3 years ago? But the reality is many companies on their digital maturity, which we'll talk about in a moment, are still a little bit laggard. And so that was number three. And then there were a bunch of others. I just looking like customer acquisition, CRM, personalization, search was another one that came up, and PIM, our favorite.
Yeah, that's a huge topic, but it ties into the first one you said, data. My table topic, Andy, that I was facilitating was, is Amazon a friend or a foe? Which is always a hot topic. Everybody wanted more time. A lot of answers around frenemy, meaning that it's necessary, particularly amongst the manufacturers. They knew they needed to be on Amazon. But, surprisingly, I got quite a few answers about, hey, Amazon isn't relevant to me. It isn't relevant to my customers, my products. My products are too complex. And I'm still shocked by that because, when I look at, in my company in SIBA, we work with some very complex products, electrical products, huge HVAC systems. They're selling on Amazon. So, I think there's still, with all the penetration, the hundreds of millions of Prime members and all the search starting there and everything that Amazon's doing in B2B, which I know firsthand, it's relevant to almost every single category. So I was surprised with that.
Well, at least the customer experience standard that Amazon is setting, a lot of the interaction, the expectation, these things are certainly relevant. So maybe they didn't quite get that part of it, but it is I agree with you. It's surprising to think somebody would say Amazon's not relevant to our business when in fact it's clearly relevant on the customer experience side. And I found that it's more relevant than they realize. I was in a presentation once several years ago, and somebody were talking about Amazon. It was an industrial company. I said, we don't care about Amazon. And I just happened to look online right immediately prior to the meeting, and I found some of their stuff was on Amazon. I said, well, what's this? And they said, well, that's not supposed to be there. I'm like, well, it is. And on the whole conversation about that. So
Yep. It's necessary. A strategy is absolutely necessary for every B2B company. I don't care if you have complex products; it's still important. So yes, and then Jared ran a roundtable around who should own the digital customer experience. That's a hot topic. We had a whole session on that in some of our executive roundtables last spring. Andy, and fascinating, right? I mean, the answers that we heard there, what were they?
Well, two paradoxical answers: everyone and no one. Was what
That's not helpful.
The two most consistent answers. But perhaps the most surprising answer was no one said the CEO. Now they might have thought, oh, this digital thing is too tactical. The CEO's concerned with other issues, but I think that's a little surprising and disappointing because maybe the word ultimately should have been added in there, but why wasn't that even in the conversation that ultimately the CEO owns this customer experience?
Well, you and I are in agreement, violent agreement, that there should be the chief digital officer should actually be the CEO, right? So, yeah, I was surprised to hear that too. Another hot question, and it was so hot that we turned around and asked our LinkedIn community this: who will be your next hire for the digital team? This is one that Carrie did, facilitated at the summit. And again, people wanted more time on this question. When we surveyed our LinkedIn audience, it was fairly consistent with what she heard. 49% next hire said data analyst or data scientist or analyst. This theme of data keeps coming up in B2B PIM systems. I'm annoying you here because you need to pay attention to this. Data scientist analyst, number one hire, 49%, followed by product manager for a digital functionality or capability, 24%. And then, behind that, digital marketing and web developer, or just developer, period. So I think what's fascinating to me here is the analytics side, right? I mean, the data and the analytics side continues to be a major theme and a need amongst these folks. And you heard it in your next dollar discussion too, right, Andy?
I did. It's pretty consistent. It's the one area that scares companies the most because they don't have a firm handle on it.
Right. That's
and, when you don't understand something, get a strategy. And so, I also have often said that I think it's the thing that differentiates companies. When you peel everything else away, you can hire people, you can acquire resources. You can't create custom customer data, product data, I guess you can buy, but your customer data and everything about it is what separates you. You know what they want, when they bought from you, what they're anticipating, all these things. And I don't know. I think a lot of companies are missing the ball here on data.
Yep. So then we broke out into roundtables. We had 7 of these executive roundtables. These were smaller groups of 15 to 20 folks that we broke out into smaller classrooms at the graduate school. And we covered a bunch of topics. We'll just hit a couple here. I know I facilitated a conversation along with American Eagle on your dirty data is no excuse. Again, we had standing room only. We had actually turned a few people away, Andy, if we didn't have room to seat them in this roundtable. So we need to, expand this one next year, I think. But, the discussion was fascinating because we had big distributors and big manufacturers in the room. And there was a debate going on about who should be responsible, for example, for product data, right? Should the manufacturer be providing better data to the distributor? Does the distributor, because they're using it in their commerce channels, do they hold a lot of responsibility here, even to tell the manufacturer what they need, provide back data and analytics around what they're and optimize their digital shelf, all those things, right? So I joke that we could have lined manufacturers and distributors up on either side, given them water balloons and let them go at it. But it was a debate, and I think we ended up in a happy place, which was that there's responsibility on both sides. But it's clear that manufacturers need to do a better job with the data and getting it to the distributor so they can be more effective in selling via digital and every other channel. So it was a great discussion. Some real practical solutions came out of it too. People talking about how they leveraged and improved their own data, how they leverage systems to do that, et cetera. Even AI came up too, right? And how was yours? You see, yours was all about upgrading tech.
Well, that's the funny part is that this is the one I was talking about. It started out down a certain path, and then it went in a different direction. direction it went in is people talked about digital slush funds.
Interesting.
And yeah, that a few people in the room, and of course there was a lot of interest in this topic. A few people in the room actually set up funds internally.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm still getting over a cold here.
Yep.
Internally, where they could tap into things and say, look, we need to make a quick decision. We need to make a quick upgrade.
Yep.
We can't wait for a process and procedure and capital investment and all that kind of other stuff. And so that was fascinating because some companies had it. Everybody else was jealous of the ones that didn't.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of agreed that it was a pretty interesting way to go to keep a separate kind of set of funds to make some quick decisions and be able to react to the market.
Interesting. I'm curious, and maybe we could do a whole nother Friday 15 on this, but curious how you justify a slush fund. If I'm the VP of e-commerce, how do I get a slush fund? And the business case to build that. We should do a session just on that, to get into that, because the pressure we found in some of our research, the pressure to show an ROI on investments is faster than it ever has been. Right. So if you have a slush fund that's sitting there, it's kind of like a venture capitalist not putting money to work. Right. I mean, it's just sitting there. What do and you're not showing any ROI on it. Well, hey, you got to do something with this, VP of e-commerce. What are you going to do? Right. So,
What it was use it or lose it money that
right.
they had allocated, but not
Right.
specifically. And
Mm-hmm.
so through the year, they were going to set up meetings to discuss how to use it, but they were going to use it for sure.
Okay.
And
Okay.
give
As
them the
long as you,
flexibility to be an agile, which is not. And by the way, slush fund was my term. Nobody else called it that.
right, unallocated growth funds or something. Right.
There you go.
So we also had these awesome case studies. We had Kimball Midwest, Jeff Reichert, talked about his dirty data problem and how he addressed it. And he's made some significant strides. He shared some data around the improvements in how both the sales team was using their system now for finding products, as well as improvements in conversion rate and overall use of the website, penetration of e-commerce to total sales. We had some great case studies from Zorro, Snap-on. Sylvia shared some really interesting insights. Owens Corning, Dawn Foods, and Adrian at JJ Keller shared a story of how she onboarded onto Amazon and avoided risks and avoided channel conflict and a bunch of other things. So that one generated a lot of conversation. And again, these were conversational sessions. Like, folks would share their problem. People would comment on it. Some people asked for solutions. Hey, Sylvia asked for some solutions at Snap-on, and the group full of, you got 100 executives here weighing in on their problems and helping them with the solutions. It was really great. I felt a little bit like, a talk show host in here, Andy, you and I, right?
Yeah, you're
Because we
running up and down the aisles, getting microphones in front of people. But
yeah,
yeah, this is in many ways probably the highlight of the day
yep,
because people get a chance to kind of let down their hair and ask some questions, get some feedback. But who wouldn't want to have 100 people giving you advice about how to solve a problem? Where can you get that?
right. It was really, and they were very practical, and people were suggesting specific solutions to solve problems, specific software solutions and hires and approaches and mistakes they made. So it was really, I think, a lot of good learning here. And we had a lot of sort of key themes emerge. Now, John Peller, the former CDO of Rexel, did pre-summit interviews, and then we heard a lot also during our summit. So John did that as a part of our leading up to the summit, and we pulled a lot of key themes out of this. And we don't have time, obviously, to cover all themes. Those of you watching the video here can see some of those themes, but we'll just cover off on two of them. And one of them was, the digital maturity still varies quite a bit. We're seeing some, like particularly manufacturers, that don't really have an e-commerce function yet. But then you've got, many distributors who are far along the path. Any comments on digital maturity, Andy?
No, in fact, we just published a report about it. We're doing a next week, next Tuesday, we are revealing part 2 in a 3-part series about how to think about digital maturity and how to advance your digital maturity. So yeah, it
Right.
definitely varies widely, and there's no right or wrong answer to any of this stuff. Some people are farther along with, say, their organizational design and less far along with data. Nobody's superior in all areas, and nobody is 100% backward in all areas. So that's,
Yep.
I think, the takeaway from that.
Well, and the framework we've created for that, that's all, by the way, even after the webcast next week, it'll be available on demand on our website. So folks can load that and watch it. But we have a whole framework, which doesn't just talk about tools. It talks about organizational structure and hiring and things like that, so people can you can assess your own digital maturity and figure out what you need to do to move to the next step. We did that in partnership with Commerce Tools. So another key theme was that all about AI, and AI is not yet foundational, but it's an opportunity as a differentiator. One of the roundtables I ran, Andy, was about AI, and we heard some very practical ways people are using it. A lot of it is around content, right? Product content, getting product content started, some normalization cases, some very specific tools were shared with the group at the roundtable, talking about, hey, I'm using this solution to do this, where it's falling down, video creation, for example. People said, hey, it's just not working for that. Even though you have Sora and other solutions in the market, it's not really ready for, at least for, advanced product content, creating videos. Any thoughts on AI?
Yeah, not perfect, but very promising. I think
Yeah,
and the very promising part makes it well worth your time, because in some areas it's
doing.
impressive.
Yeah, it is, and I think people need to be working and experimenting with it. So we got some incredible feedback. I'll share a little bit of that with the group here. A little bit of, I guess, self promotion, but it's really not us saying it, right? I mean, VP of e-commerce at Catchmaster, which is a leading producer of professional pest control products, Elias, he said, an incredible experience filled with valuable insights, innovative ideas, and engaging discussions on the future of B2B e-commerce. Rob Richardson over at Miller Knoll, which many of you sit on Aon chairs. They make, Miller Knoll's a big furniture company. Great atmosphere, conversation. He left wanting more. Denise Foley, EVP of e-commerce at the ULE Group. They're a distributor of electrical products. So many learnings, crowdsourcing of challenges and solutions, meeting peers and getting inspired. A brilliant event. I can't wait till next year. And by the way, it wasn't just practitioners that were given the event kudos. Also, James from Credit Key, James Wallen, VP Sales, hands down the best event of the year for sharing best practices and open dialogue. Thank you guys for saying those things. We look for feedback and ways to improve, and we incorporate that in. And we appreciate all of your feedback and comments. These were just a few of them. So a great event.
Yeah, the most impressive thing here, none of it was solicited.
Right.
We didn't have a single person for any feedback, and there were dozens more quotes that came through, people just saying, look, privately, you guys are really onto something here. So that makes us feel good.
Yeah, it does. But it also speaks to I think the need that we're filling in the market, which is around this community aspect, right? And the other thing that impressed me too, Andy, through this whole event, I didn't see any open laptops. I didn't see people on their phones. They were engaged. They were talking. They were interacting. This wasn't a sort of standard conference for people watching someone pitch themselves and their solutions. This was much more engaged. So, we're continuing this into the fall. We have a whole series of Master B2B executive roundtables. We're doing 9 of these at least this fall through key cities throughout the United States, starting in Denver and Chicago. We're doing both of those on September 11th. I'm doing one, Andy's doing the other. We're going to be in New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Dallas, Minneapolis, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. These are fabulous events. We're just about to put them on our website, so you can go register. Starting, I think, Monday, we're going to have them up. You can go on there and register if you're in one of those markets or you want to join us in one of those markets. These are 20 to 30 people. We have these same kinds of discussions through the late afternoon. We start at 3:30 for networking, 4 o'clock the discussion. Then a wonderful, cocktail social and dinner afterwards. We have these at very nice places. Private clubs, usually at the top of a skyscraper. So really beautiful, and engaging events. We've gotten good feedback on these as well. So we encourage you to sign up for those. And then, of course, Andy, our forum, which takes all we do offline, online. Our forum is a practitioner-only and free venue for practitioners, e-commerce executives to join and to share with one another. And we're getting all kinds of comments and feedback, people asking about solutions. So go to our website, masterb2b.com, go to forum, and you can sign up or submit an application to join. and become a member at no cost. So encourage you to become a member of our community, Master B2B. We're doing some really interesting, exciting things, and really just trying to connect people on these issues. So Andy, we're at Friday 2025 here or so. We've gone a little long. We had a lot to share. Any final thoughts for our audience before we wrap for this Friday 25?
I would always say it was a reminder at the summit about how powerful this network is. I mean, when you're sitting next to somebody on the right who runs a $1 billion website, a person on the left who runs a $15 billion website, between the two of them, 40 years of experience, and they're sharing ideas back and forth, and we get to be a fly on the wall, and other people who are less digitally mature get to sit there with eyes wide open and listen in on what's going on. And by the way, some of the less digital mature are actually sharing ideas with the more digital mature too, because you get to some point where you think, well, we got all the problems solved. So even the old dogs are learning new tricks at these things too.
That's right.
It was just amazing to see this go on. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for the quality and quantity of this network.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're excited to continue we're going to be continuing our Friday 15s through the summer. And by the way, if you want to listen to all of our Friday 15s, they're available by a podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, on our website as well. So lots of different places you can find it, pick it up and listen, or watch here on LinkedIn as well, the recording. Thanks, everyone, for listening today and joining. We'll see you next week on our next Friday 15, and we'll have another fun topic and discussion then. Thanks so much for joining.
See you then.